Mountaineer Paul, Locked On West Virginia. 2 weeks ago, I don't know, there was a Twitter account that said West Virginia is fourth on the list for the SEC in expansion, and that if push comes to shove, that the offer could be there from the Southeastern Conference to bring the Mountaineers in. And there have been the thoughts of, well, they're in the ACC, they'd have more regional rivals, and maybe the Big Ten wants to come along and get a brand like West Virginia. You think the Mountaineers would ever really leave the Big 12?
I mean, it would have to be for the SEC. It would have to be for the SEC. I don't know. For the Big 12 is never, the Big 10 is never going to happen for us. Obviously, the SEC makes sense regionally for us. You get Kentucky. Obviously, you get a lot of teams. Tennessee is pretty close to home. It makes sense, but can we win in the league? Will we be a Vanderbilt? I don't know. Those are questions I don't have the answers for. Obviously, financially, you're going to gain a lot going into a conference like that. You're going to be able to compete at the cap every year. Outside of the cap, I'd have no clue where we would stand. Obviously, we've got one billionaire donor that I know of and Pat McAfee, but that's everybody in the SEC for the most part, right? Except minus Pat McAfee. Nobody has that on their side. But, is Pat McAfee the kind of guy that's willing to day Portnoy for us and just buy us players, go buy a Bryce Underwood? I don't think so. So I think a tenure in the SEC for West Virginia would be interesting. But I think the stability in the Big 12 and a seat at the table is pretty damn good. And I think West Virginia has shown over the course of a dozen years to be pretty happy in the Big 12 and not complain about being in the Big 12 and actually be thankful for being in the Big 12, unlike some that get extended this opportunity. And it is an opportunity to be amongst fan bases that are much like us, rabid fan bases like me and you, Drake, that record literally 7 days a week, sometimes multiple times a day because we love it so much, right? So there's not a lot of places outside the Big 12 that can say that. A lot of it is because we're shit on so much. We're looked down on so much. We're a truck stop conference, and we band together as a result of that. And in the SEC, the superiority, I don't think vibes with certain places and certain teams. And West Virginia is definitely not the kind of place to look down on other people, at least from we're better than you in football kind of standpoint. We've always fought from behind. We've always been the Rocky against Thunderlips, right? So I don't know, man. I think it's great in theory. I don't think West Virginia, I think they would take it. Absolutely. I do think they would go. Is there actual smoke to it? I don't know. I think West Virginia's probably had conversations just like most people.
I talk a lot on my show when I talk about West Virginia about being from Arkansas and the underdog mentality and football being king there. And, UCLA fans will never get it. Never. There's no chance anybody at USC or even at Washington is going to get this and understand the amount of hardship that a state can have and how college football can bring you out of it or give you some sort of hope. It's a weird thing, but it's what the whole state rallies around. West Virginia has that. I don't see that in the Big Ten. I don't think it would be a fit. I don't think the Big Ten would want West Virginia. I could see why the SEC would want that level of pomp and circumstance and another state. The question maybe should be, is West Virginia happy in the current Big 12 with so few teams you can drive to and see your favorite Mountaineers play?
It's crushing to us financially. It is. We can't register a positive on anything because, unfortunately, and this goes and compounds across all sports, right? It's not just football. It's basketball. It's Olympic sports. It's rifle. It's everything. Although in some sports we're not in the Big 12, but generally across most sports we have to travel more than anybody else, or at least had, not anymore. Now, obviously, UCF, Cincinnati can talk a similar thing. It's just that it's compounded for us over the course of a dozen years, right? We just haven't been able to register these positive. We're always in the red. Even though we draw at about 125 or 130 million on in some years. So, it's just unfortunate because our travel cost is so high. It's difficult for us. That's why, you see Rembecker is doing some really, really cool things with revenue. Like we talked about the slogans in Rich Rod and how we're able to reinvest those slogans back into the university at Rich Rod's discretion. That could be NIL, that can be anything. So all people have to do is buy these shirts with his slogans. And at 50%, you can reinvest, right? You got to be creative to be at West Virginia. It's a tough job financially. but a rewarding job, and you get to be around some of the best people. But yeah, it's definitely a tough situation for us. But like I said, we're grateful for our place. Always grateful to be in the Big 12. No natural rival hurts, obviously. I think we've tried to develop that with some teams, but I think the lack of us being competitive has probably made that a thing as much as anything else.
Yeah, that's a piece where I think West Virginia is unique. They can lose for 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, and still be West Virginia. There are some brands that don't give that opportunity. I believe the Mountaineers do. I would be frustrated. Without having
been rough.
A Pitt. I'd be frustrated without, you mentioned Tennessee schools or Kentucky or anybody in the area. Do you think the Big 12's next move should be Louisville, Pitt, Virginia Tech, bringing in schools like that to give West Virginia a buddy, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, as far as fan bases go, it doesn't get much better than Virginia Tech. They are a rabid fan base there, and they're just in Virginia. They're just a state over. Absolutely. Louisville is a great fan base as well, especially in basketball. They've come a long ways in football. Obviously, Pitt brings the brawl. They don't have the reputation for having a terrific fan base, unfortunately. But man, they do have – the ones that do love Pitt are very dedicated to that. I would love to see it. I think it would be just an amazing thing for West Virginia, obviously. And I think it would bring a lot of value to the conference, especially especially if we get those two major rivalries. A lot of people don't realize that Syracuse and West Virginia has a long history, but we won't get into that because I'm sure that doesn't bring a lot of value to the conference outside of basketball.
No, I don't want Syracuse. Yeah, I don't think I want Syracuse.
You don't want the Schwartzwalder Trophy in the conference?
I don't think so. I do think I want to see West Virginia stay in the Big 12 despite the hardships it's been for 12 years. And the next step is in the next few, adding some schools from the ACC to give the Mountaineers a breather, to give them a break, to give them something more regional. And I've said this on my show. We always talk about how bad expansion and realignment is. Maybe it can get to the point where it's so bad that it's good. In an event where the Big 12 does add a Washington State and Oregon State. The Big 12 does add a Pitt and a Louisville and Virginia Tech. And all of a sudden, you look around the conference and go, yeah, now West Virginia can play 4 or 5 games that actually matter to West Virginia. And yeah, Utah can play Washington State and Oregon State and BYU. And now, instead of 12 games and your 9 conference games are spread across the country, you have 9 conference games that are regional. And I like that part a lot.
I do too. I would love that, especially if it got into a place where it'd be maybe you're talking about some, maybe a little bit of regions or something like that going on where, we're playing in wings. And then I don't know how you would do a championship game or if you even do one in this day and age. Like there's a lot to hash out with that. But certainly there is a lot going on with the conference realignment stuff and the different variations of it. But I would love to have, at the end of the day, just give me Louisville, Pitt, Virginia Tech. Oh man, that would be great for West Virginia fans. We would be extremely happy with that. And I do think, like I said, it would bring a ton of value to the conference in so many ways. Rivalries literally drive this sport, and the powers that be just don't see that for whatever reason. I don't know why. I have no answer for it, but you'll see why when I just showed you guys earlier in our group text. There are tickets for the Brawl that are going for $1,800 right now in an unranked game. You can't even pay that for probably playoff tickets next year.
Yep. It's incredible. Paul, where can more folks find your work?
Locked On West Virginia at Paul Mountaineer over on X. And that's about it right now, man. I appreciate you for having me on. If you want to see me on there, I chug a lot of dew. Most of the times it's in segment 2. Every now and again, we get in a segment 3, we'll chug a Dr. P. Or every now and again, if I want a healthy show, we'll do a diet green tea.
I like it. This has been and always will be Locked On. Thanks for making our shows your first listen every single day. A crossover with West Virginia and Dose Grande.